Hey guys, this is Adam Passion from BigUglyRobot Press, and I very rarely make any kind of videos like this, especially where they're showing my face, but it is the 20-year anniversary of BigUglyRobot Comics, and so I wanted to make a few little short videos just to talk about where we've come so far, hopefully where we're going in the future, and maybe why you haven't heard from us in a couple of years. So, and when I say us, I mean me, because it's really a one-man operation. Anyway, one of the things that a lot of people ask when I'm talking about the label is, why did you decide to name it Big Ugly Robot? And you shouldn't ask me, you should ask 12-year-old me. Because this all goes back to a video game called Super Baseball 2020. This is obviously the Super Famicom version, and I would have been playing it on the Super Nintendo version, but it's the same game. In this game, Super Baseball 2020, there are robotic pitchers, and the robot pitchers, when they strike you out, they make this really annoying kind of smirk towards the camera. And when I was a kid playing this game with my cousin, we would get enraged whenever this robot would make his stupid little face. And it became an inside joke between the two of us, and that's why we decided to call this BigUglyRobot Press. And that actually starts taking me back to the very beginning of the story of how I started making comics in the first place. It all started with that cousin, my cousin Evan, and we would sit and spend entire summers drawing comics together. And rather than just sort of tell you about the comics, I thought it might be fun if I could show them to you, because I've got them here. So recently my parents were cleaning out their old storage unit, and they found a box full of all of my old drawings and toys and things like that, and they found an envelope that had a bunch of these old comics from the early 1990s that I had drawn when I was in elementary school, and so I am going to share them with you, as embarrassing as that is. This is one of the very first comic books that I drew. As you can see, it's called Light Lord and Might Lord, and if you look very carefully at the top, this little text banner, it says the best and very first issue of the mighty Light Lord and Might Lord. So that's not a very promising beginning if the very first issue is the best issue and all of them go downhill from there. Now you can see up here the logo. This is the imprint of my brand, and it does not say BigUglyRobot. It's hard to say actually what it says because it's been erased so many times, and that is because I changed the name of the imprint several times. What it started off as, you can actually see here, this one, ABCD Comics, and this stands for Adam, Brandon, Chris, and Dustin. So Dustin was my best friend in the 4th grade, and Chris was my other best friend in the 4th grade, and we used to have sleepovers all the time, and we would stay up all night talking about comic books and drawing all of our own characters, and that is how this came about. This is mostly just throwing in as many characters as I could and trying to make some kind of a story out of it. So Adam, Brandon, Chris, and Dustin. Brandon is my brother, and he didn't really participate at all in these comic books, but we were really close growing up, and I wanted him included in everything that I did. So I put him on the second build on the imprint. And to be honest, ABCD Comics was mostly just me. Sometimes it was Dustin, but for the most part, it was just me, one-man show. And I want to show you some of the things we made. So here is Light Lord and Might Lord, and you can see here there's lots of times where I wrote in pen and I had to scribble it out and rewrite it, or sometimes, like in this case, just write over it. And I was not a very good speller, obviously, when I was in elementary school, but this is kind of fun to look at. Derek and Eric finished their work and aborted the spacecraft. Not aborted, but aborted. There's a lot of little things like that. Here, it's not the most well-written thing in the world. Here you go. This robot's name is Londonian, which I'm guessing probably came from London, maybe? But this was actually a big red plastic robot that I had in my toy collection and I don't remember where it came from, but this is a recurring theme in these early comics is I would take my old toys and I would draw them and put them into the comic books. When I didn't do that, they ended up looking really awful, like this monstrosity who has like a spring leg and a half turtle face and a cyborg head, and he's holding what looks like a plunger, but it's probably a laser gun. So this is the story of Might Lord and Light Lord, and you can see here there's just so many characters that come into play. There's a ninja, there is what looks like a Native American, there was a Viking earlier, there's a robot, and this is based on, me reading all these X-Men comics from the 90s where they would just have a glut of, hundreds of different characters all with their own little arcs. And I thought that was normal, so that's what I did, is I drew lots and lots of characters, which was the fun world building part for me. Now, here's a little note. I always put advertisements for comic books and the label itself in all of my comic books when I was a kid, because that's what I knew. That's what Marvel and DC and all the other comic book companies did. And so I would advertise for comic books that didn't exist yet. This is one of the few where it actually came to fruition. So this is an advertisement for a book called Thunder Force, and you can see on the back that's also for a book called Thunder Force, and you can see probably the worst drawing of the female form that exists in history. My understanding of female anatomy at this tender young age was essentially non-existent, so I drew a straight line here to indicate cleavage, but somehow or other wanted to show this part of her chest and her giant gorilla-sized shoulders, and this is the extent of how I knew to draw the female form. Now, this next one is kind of funny. Thunder Force, as you can see, actually came to be, and the character designs and everything else is actually a lot better than before. But you'll notice here that they all have this kind of cross mark on them. The reason being, my mother and father wanted me to make something a bit more Christian. They didn't want me spending all my time drawing all of these fantasy and superhero stuff, so they wanted me to make something that was more Christian. So, you can see here, this is almost like a Jack Chick tract. There's the key to salvation here in the opening page. Step number 1, meet someone who goes to church. Step number 2, ask if you can go to church with them. Step 3, listen to what the pastor and teachers say. Step number 4, ask God to forgive your sins. Step 5, ask Jesus into your heart. If you follow these steps, you have found the key to salvation. And I actually started off just like the book of Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And right off the bat, it starts getting into all of this other kind of stuff, introducing the Thunder Force. So this is a Christian team of heroes. So God sent a legion of angels disguised as a normal band of superheroes. So I love this line here. And Jesus said, after my death, the world shall become very corrupt. That is definitely not scriptural. This is a very apocryphal book here. But anyway, so this is my attempt at making a Christian book. A lot of these things, I think this was based on like a G.I. Joe helicopter or something like that. But overall, the drawings are a lot better than before. Look there's actually a different change of perspective. It's not a straight on body like everything else. It's a back shot, and I'm actually really impressed with these ones. I think I must have been looking at more comic books to figure out foreshortening and things like that here, because obviously this became a lot more accomplished as far as my drafting skill as a little kid. But here's the shocker that I didn't remember drawing. There's a father here. He's drunk. He is coming here to beat his son because the son is praying for his dad to give up alcohol. And so the father is coming to beat him. And as he's about to beat him, something bursts through his chest, like in the movie Aliens, and this demon appears behind him, because that is a very Christian kind of story to tell. So, anyway, this is Thunder Force, and you can see the advertisement here, Black is back. By popular demand, new suit, same old hero. So this is for a character called Black Diamond, and that is the main thing that I was drawing back in the early 90s. So you can see here, Black Diamond, Black Diamond, Black Diamond. And I think I got this name, Black Diamond, because I took a ski trip when I was a kid, and I thought the Black Diamond was the hardest hills, you know, at that ski resort, so I thought that is a cool name for a hero. Now you can see here that he's fighting, obviously, Locutus of Borg. I had a Star Trek figure, and I wasn't even really into Star Trek, but I had a Star Trek figure, and so I was drawing the bad guy as Locutus of Borg, and this guy, if any of you can guess who that is, I'll be really, really impressed. That is this Transformer right here. And I searched everywhere for this because the original was broken. And as you can see, I was obsessed with it as a little kid. I drew dozens of comic books about it, but I didn't know his name. I thought his name was Black Diamond. And so trying to find this character online, trying to find this toy was a Herculean feat. There are thousands of Transformer toys out there, and over various generations, and even over a couple different companies, and trying to find this was really, really difficult. However, I took a picture of this front cover, and I put it up on Reddit, and within, I would say, less than an hour, somebody said exactly what figure I needed and sent me a link to an eBay listing. And so now I have this in my collection as I try to buy back my childhood. But here is Black Diamond. And Black Diamond is, it is a story of a policeman who is killed and comes back as a robot. So I think that is very obviously paying homage to RoboCop. Now here's a really funny thing here. Subscribe now. Alright, and I was offering subscriptions. 15 issues of any of these comics for $10. Now that is a steal. And you can see here, the offer expires on May 16th of 1994. So that means that this must have been drawn around 1993, 1992. I'm not sure exactly. But look at all these books that did not exist. So we have L&M Lord, Future W, whatever that is. Sonic Force doesn't exist. Sonic Fire doesn't exist. World Unknown, perhaps, doesn't exist. Amar doesn't exist. Fireflight, IEM, Buddy, Black Diamond, that does exist. Vortex and Pit Fighter, none of these existed actually, except for Light Lord and Might Lord, and Black Diamond at the bottom. But I was ready to start selling subscriptions when I had about 1 or 2 books under my belt. So here, yeah, this is the comic book about Black Diamond, and I actually had fun reading this weird little comic book. As silly as it is, one thing that I do like about this, and I remember very clearly liking it as a kid, is that Black Diamond holds this, let me try to find it for you. He holds this big, weird, hunky thing, and this one right here, this is his time machine. So you can see here, Black Diamond's gun, and let's take a look at it. So there's a time circuit for the enemy, and a cartridge case, and off lever, on lever, place setting, time circuit for yourself, and power gauge. And so basically this gun can shoot people and blast them into either the past or the future. And this is because I used to run around the house playing with a Casio keyboard, and I would push the buttons and pretend it was a gun. And I thought that was a cool idea, and so this became my time gun. And you can see him actually shooting here and blasting Locutus of Borg into another dimension or into another time. I'm not sure, but you can see him blasting there. And it was actually kind of a fun, cool little idea there. So these are the Black Diamond comic books, and the last thing I want to show you is this one, bringing it full circle to my cousin Evan. This was a comic book called Miracle Grow, and my cousin Evan and I drew this one summer, and it is the most bizarre kind of thing in the world. You can tell we would be reading a lot of Cracked and Mad magazine, and so you can see little things like the Enterprise saying Spock Mayday. This is the main bad guy, Mr. Head, and here is a little star saying oh geez, and this is guest starring Mr. Head. So the idea behind Miracle Grow is that he was poisoned with radioactive manure, and this radioactive manure gave him the ability to eat manure without throwing up. And in the very first scene, he shows his power to this big muscular guy. The guy actually unzips his suit, shows that he's a puny little guy, and then he immediately barfs his head off. Quite literally barfs his head off. So, with the only thing there to throw in jail, he threw the head into jail, and the head sprouted arms and legs, and this gave us Mr. Head. So, we can see a jury of all little Mr. Heads. There are some misappropriated characters here, like Homer Simpson, obviously, and Bart Simpson, who I called Barf instead of Bart, Sumo, and anyway, this was this really strange little comic book that we made, all kind of a gag comic. And this is really where Big Ugly Robot made the change from Predator Comics, which is what I was calling it at the time, to become Big Ugly Robot Comics. That is for the next episode.